Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. It all started with a white bowl. I was rinsing it for the third time, not because it was dirty, but because I needed a reason to stay in the kitchen. That bowl gave me more warmth than the woman I married. She was in the living room, feet up, laughing at something on her phone. Not once did she look my way. I heard her laugh, that particular fake one she reserves for someone she's trying to impress. It wasn't for me. Hadn't been for years. But lately, it felt like I was living with a stranger who wore my wife's skin. That evening, she finally spoke to me. I'd been avoiding touching her for a week. No kisses, no cuddles, not even a brush of my hand against hers. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because I needed to breathe. "Why haven't you touched me in days?" she asked, eyes still glued to her screen. I dried the bowl, looked at her, said what I had rehearsed in my head for nights. "I'm preparing for life as a bachelor." She didn't even blink at first. Then she gave me the snort laugh, like I was just being sensitive old Edgar again. "Yeah, that's me, Edgar. Accountant. Devoted. Forgettable." She said, "God, don't start your drama again." "Drama? You want to hear drama? How about this?" 3 days ago, I opened the shared laptop and found a folder called Fitness Progress. Inside were 32 photos. None of her. All of him. His abs. His tattoos. His dog. His hotel room. There was a video file too. I didn't open it. My imagination already plays it every night. I emailed the folder to myself and then deleted the originals. You can call me spineless, but I wasn't ready. Not yet. You know what hurts the most? It wasn't the physical betrayal. It was the way she started looking through me, like I was just something she had to walk around to get to her new life. But here's the part she didn't expect. I've been quiet. I've been pathetic. But I've also been planning. Slowly. Carefully. Because even broken men can draw maps out of hell, and I've drawn mine. And it starts with one sentence. "I'm preparing for life as a bachelor." You think that shook her? Just wait. After I said it, "I'm preparing for life as a bachelor," there was a silence thick enough to choke on. Celine blinked at me twice, slowly, like I was speaking a language she didn't understand. Then she scoffed and went back to scrolling, muttering something under her breath like, "You always make things harder than they are." But that wasn't just deflection. That was guilt talking. I knew the signs. I just hadn't wanted to admit them. Later that night, she climbed into bed like nothing had happened. She lay with her back to me, scrolling until her screen lit up the wall. I didn't say a word. I just watched the reflection of her face, expressionless, cold, completely detached from the woman I once knew. She used to fall asleep curled into me like I was home. Now it felt like I was lying next to a stranger impersonating my wife. But it was that one moment, just before she fell asleep, when I finally broke. She left her phone face up. A new message flashed across the screen. It was from M. Again. No name, just an initial and a heart emoji. The preview read, "Miss your voice already. Friday can't come fast enough." That was it. No more excuses. No more self-gaslighting. No more late-night Google searches trying to convince myself I was paranoid. The worst part? I didn't even feel angry. I just felt small, like I'd been slowly disappearing and finally realized I was almost gone. I lay there for hours with my eyes open, staring at the ceiling like it might give me answers. My chest hurt, but not in the way that panic feels. It was more like grief, like I was mourning someone who was still breathing next to me. At 3:47 a.m., I quietly slipped out of bed and into the guest room. I didn't sleep. I just stared at the wall, clutching my phone with shaking fingers. I knew I had to do something. But how do you confront someone who already decided you were disposable? I started writing everything down. The texts, the change in routine, the shift in energy. Not for proof, I already knew. I did it for clarity. Because when someone you love treats you like a ghost, you have to remind yourself you still exist. And I did. Barely. But not for long. By Thursday, I had rehearsed 5 different versions of how I'd confront her. Each one started brave and ended with me frozen, heart racing, while she brushed me off like she always did. But something shifted that morning. I was feeding Bandit, our cat, when I noticed her gym bag by the door, open. She never leaves it open. Out of habit, I bent down to zip it shut, and that's when I saw it. A bracelet. Gold. Delicate. Not expensive, but definitely not hers. She doesn't wear jewelry like that. Too dainty, she once said. It wasn't mine, obviously, and it didn't match anything she owned. Now, here's where I wish I had done something bold. Like marched in, held it up, demanded answers. But no. I just stood there like a nervous idiot, holding the stranger's bracelet like it had the power to shatter what was left of my dignity. When she came out of the bedroom, dressed in a crop top I hadn't seen before, she grabbed the bag so fast I almost dropped it. No eye contact. Just, running late. Don't wait up. Don't wait up? She was going to a 10 a.m. workout, not a midnight jazz club. I stood at the window and watched her get into a car that wasn't hers. Or mine. Or a rideshare. A gray sedan, tinted windows, engine already running. She didn't even look back. I went to my office and pulled up the local car rental site. I typed in the license plate. I'd memorized it without even trying. 10 minutes later, I knew the car was registered to someone named Marcus Whitner, a name I didn't recognize. I felt my throat close, not in anger, in humiliation. I had let myself become furniture, predictable, safe, and invisible. Later that night, I sat at the edge of our bed while she showered, staring at the tiny bracelet in my hand. I wanted it to be nothing, maybe a lost and found fluke. But deep down, I already knew. When she walked out in her towel, humming, smelling like unfamiliar cologne, I finally spoke. "Who's Marcus?" I asked. She paused, just for a second, then smiled and said, "You're being paranoid again, Ed." No, this time I wasn't. The next morning, I did something uncharacteristically bold, at least by my standards. I followed her. Not in some dramatic spy movie way, but in my own clumsy, nervous, sweating bullets kind of way. I pretended I had an early dentist appointment, packed a stale protein bar, and left 15 minutes after she did. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like my ribs might crack. I stayed one car behind. Luckily, she wasn't paying attention. She was too busy on her phone, probably texting Marcus, or whoever else got her smiling like that lately. She didn't go to the gym, not even close. She drove across town, past the highway, into some business complex that had no gyms, no spas, no yoga studios. She parked behind a beige building with a "for lease" sign hanging crooked on the window. And then I saw it, the same gray rental sedan from before already parked there. The moment she got out, the passenger door opened. A tall guy, early 40s, salt and pepper hair, athletic build, business casual clothes. He smiled when he saw her, like they were already halfway through a secret. She hugged him, not a friendly side hug, a full, slow, cheek-against-chest type of hug. And then they walked inside together. I stayed in my car, gripping the wheel until my knuckles hurt. I didn't cry. I thought I would. Instead, I just felt hollow, like all the love I'd buried in her had finally run dry. After an hour, they still hadn't come out. I took a shaky breath and drove off. I didn't want to know what was happening behind that locked door. But I already knew. I didn't need proof. Her actions were louder than any photo or text. When she came home that evening, she looked radiant. Different. Like someone who had been reminded they were still desirable. She asked me if I wanted Chinese takeout for dinner like nothing had happened. I said, "Sure," and nodded like a coward. She didn't know I had printed a rental receipt from the website that morning. She didn't know I took a photo of them hugging. She didn't know I'd already transferred half of our savings into a separate account under my name. I was done crying into my cereal. She thought I was still the same passive, anxious Edgar. She was wrong. 2 days passed. I said nothing. I acted like I hadn't seen the building, the hug, or the receipt that practically screamed, "This isn't just emotional anymore." I played the part of the passive husband so well, I started to hate myself for it. But it was strategy now. I needed her to feel untouchable because arrogance makes people sloppy. That Friday morning, she was in a great mood. dancing around the kitchen in her oversized hoodie, singing along to some pop song she used to mock, pouring herself coffee she used to make for both of us. I watched her, pretending to read emails on my phone, pretending that I didn't notice the small overnight bag near the door she thought she was hiding behind the coat rack. She looked over at me and asked, "You working late again today?" I shrugged and replied, "Yeah, might grab a drink with Dale after." Dale doesn't even live in this state anymore. She didn't question it. She just nodded, grabbed her keys, and kissed me on the cheek like we were still pretending we were okay. Her lips didn't even press down. Felt like air. The moment she left, I moved fast. I didn't follow her this time. I followed Marcus. I had done some digging. I won't say how. Let's just say curiosity and desperation can make even someone like me learn things I never thought I'd Google. I found his business listing, an old Facebook profile, and a few forgotten LinkedIn endorsements. He was a divorcee. Twice, actually. He ran a consulting firm out of an office attached to that same complex I saw her enter. And the worst part? He had no kids, no roots, nothing to lose. That evening, she came home humming. She tossed the bag in the closet, didn't say much. Then, while brushing her hair, she said it, so casually. "Marcus says I've been glowing lately." I froze. I didn't even turn my head. She didn't notice, or didn't care. She just kept brushing. I wanted to scream, to ask her how long she thought she could keep this up, to ask why she thought I wouldn't see the signs, or why she was now so brazen that she'd say his name out loud in our bedroom. But I didn't scream. I just whispered, "You should be careful what you say out loud. Some people listen better when they're quiet." She stopped brushing, looked at me through the mirror. "What's that supposed to mean?" I smiled. "Nothing, just something I read." And then I left the room. I didn't know it then, but that moment would be the last time we ever shared a quiet night under the same roof. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there, staring at the ceiling while she slept inches from me, completely unaware that her world was about to tilt. I wasn't interested in dramatic gestures or slamming doors. I wanted something quieter, something she'd remember long after the silence settled in. So I wrote a message. Simple, direct, cold. It said, "You're not as careful as you think." That's it. No name, no greeting, nothing more. I sent it from a burner email I made that morning using a VPN and an old laptop I hadn't touched since college. Then I attached the photo, the one of her hugging Marcus in the parking lot, time-stamped, clean. I didn't send it to her. I sent it to him. Less than 3 minutes later, her phone lit up in the dark. She shifted, groaned, then grabbed it off the nightstand. I pretended to stay asleep, barely breathing. She stared at the screen for a long time, longer than someone normally would. And then I heard her whisper, barely audible, "Oh my God!" She got out of bed and walked quietly into the bathroom, locking the door behind her. Water ran. Her voice was muffled, but I knew that tone. Panic. Urgency. She was calling him. I couldn't hear the exact words, but I didn't need to. The truth doesn't need subtitles when it finally speaks. When she came back out 20 minutes later, her expression was twisted into something I hadn't seen since the week her father passed. Like her life had just collapsed and no one else noticed. She didn't look at me. She just crawled under the sheets, stiff and trembling. The next morning, she made breakfast. Bacon, eggs, coffee with cinnamon, my favorite. She hadn't done that in months. She was overly cheerful, asking about my day, my work, if I needed anything. Her eyes darted every few seconds like a student trying to cheat on a test without getting caught. That evening, I left my phone on the kitchen counter, unlocked, with a fake text thread open, a name she didn't recognize, a message at the top that said, "I think she knows, but let's wait. This is getting fun." I watched her read it while she pretended to look for the TV remote. Her hands trembled. She didn't say anything. She just started washing the dishes that were already clean. I wasn't trying to play games. I was trying to show her what it felt like to lose control, to second-guess everything, to lie awake wondering what they knew, what they saw, what might happen next. She had built her new life behind my back. Now she would live inside the shadow of mine. By Sunday morning, I could see it in her posture. Something was unraveling behind her eyes. Her cheerful act was starting to slip, and I wasn't saying a word to help her hold it together. We were two people playing pretend. Only one of us knew the game was over. She offered to make brunch. Brunch. That was her I'm scared mode. Cinnamon waffles, whipped cream, strawberries, the works. I sat at the table and nodded along while she tried to fill the silence with stories about coworkers I'd never met. But her hands were shaking when she poured the syrup. She finally broke when she asked, "Is everything okay between us?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and said, "Why wouldn't it be?" Her face twitched, a brief crack in her mask. "You've been different lately. Maybe I just see things more clearly now," I said, and I smiled. That smile must have done something to her, because for the rest of the day, she hovered around me like I was a ticking bomb she couldn't defuse. She offered to do my laundry. She asked if I wanted to go for a walk, like old times. She even tried to hold my hand while we watched a movie, which almost made me laugh. Almost. She didn't know I'd already booked a new place to live. A quiet studio 2 towns over, furnished, prepaid for 3 months in cash. She didn't know I'd slowly removed every important document from the house. My birth certificate, our prenup, my social security card, even the deed to the old truck that only I used. All gone. Quietly. Without a trace. What she also didn't know, I was recording everything. Each conversation, every moment she said something that contradicted her past lies. The audio files were neatly stored on a hidden drive, not for revenge, not for leverage, but for proof. Because one day she might try to rewrite the story, and I wanted to make sure I could still hear the truth, even if she refused to say it. That night, I caught her staring at me while I brushed my teeth. Not lovingly, not curiously, but nervously, like she didn't recognize the man in front of her anymore. And maybe she didn't, because I wasn't Edgar, the man who begged her to look up from her phone. I wasn't the man who cried silently when she stopped saying, "I love you." I wasn't the one who believed her when she said Marcus was just a colleague. I was someone new, and I was almost gone. I left the house on a Wednesday morning, just after sunrise. No screaming, no tears, no goodbye note. Just a single house key placed on the kitchen counter beside a mug of coffee she didn't make. She was still asleep, or pretending to be. It didn't matter. I walked out the front door for the last time, locking it behind me. Quietly, like I had always done everything. I slid the second key into the mailbox where she'd find it later. There was something fitting about that, like returning borrowed silence. The studio I moved into wasn't much, but it was mine. The floors creaked, the windows stuck, and the fridge groaned like it was haunted. But I slept the first full night in months. No anxiety, no second-guessing. Just sleep. Deep, uninterrupted, healing sleep. In the days that followed, I didn't check my phone for messages. I knew she'd reach out eventually, and she did. Dozens of texts, voicemails, even an email titled, "Please come home." I didn't open it. I didn't need to. I already knew how it ended. The truth? She wasn't sorry for the affair. She was sorry she lost control. Sorry I saw her without the filters and excuses. Sorry I didn't crumble like she expected. What she hadn't anticipated was that I'd leave with grace, with planning, and with peace. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. I picked up my brushes like they'd been waiting for me, and in the silence of my new space, I started making color out of pain. Canvas by canvas, I painted out every memory she tried to overwrite. One day I even smiled, and that was the moment I knew I wasn't preparing for life as a bachelor anymore. I was living it, not bitter, not broken, just free. Thanks for watching Reddit Confessions. If you made it to the end, let us know in the comments. Have you ever quietly walked away from someone who thought you never would? Or better yet, what's one life event that made you stronger than you thought you could be? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your story with us. Because sometimes the quietest people have the loudest confessions. We'll see you in the next one.